Hello, I'm Kyle. I am 38 years old and reside in Eagan, Minnesota, a serene city located just outside of Minneapolis. It may not be the sort of location that captures attention, yet it is my sanctuary, the backdrop of my existence for the majority of my days. Today, I feel compelled to share an unbelievable tale, an experience from earlier this year that still leaves me in disbelief. As I navigated my childhood, I often found myself blending into the background, never quite the one to capture attention. In reality, I was entirely different. You might label me as a nerd, but truthfully, I wasn't entirely convinced of my own coolness. I've often found myself more reserved, immersed in the pages of a good book. In my younger years, I often found myself at home, immersed in books or engaged in video games, rather than socializing with friends. I didn't lack the desire, I simply never grasped the way to go about it. I wasn't precisely the life of the party. My upbringing was shaped by my mother. She gave it her all. My father departed when I was 7, and from that point on, it was just the two of us. Throughout my life, I lacked a prominent male figure to look up to, which has made me somewhat reserved and uncertain in social situations, particularly when engaging with women. My mother was the cornerstone of our family, ensuring I had all the resources necessary to thrive in my studies. She consistently encouraged me to strive for excellence and to persist, which is likely why I became so dedicated to my studies. I wasn't the most athletic child, so I dedicated myself to my studies, believing it would yield rewards in the end. I always believed that with enough effort, I could achieve something significant, and that's likely how I found myself securing a position at a reputable company. I felt a sense of pride in my achievements, yet upon reflection, I recognized that my existence revolved predominantly around my professional commitments. I rarely ventured outside. I chose not to engage in dating. I simply wasn't sure how to proceed. I felt out of place in the company of women. I would observe colleagues in the office with their significant others and wonder, why can't I experience that too? Yet, I never made the jump. I suppose you could describe me as quite the literary enthusiast. For years, I shied away from relationships, believing I fell short of what anyone would want, and constantly convinced that women had no interest in me. I never truly allowed myself to be vulnerable enough to discover the truth. I found solace in solitude, yet beneath the surface, a yearning for something greater lingered within me. I simply lacked the confidence to chase after it. However, the dynamics shifted during the company's festive gathering last December. I didn't anticipate anything unusual, merely another evening spent in the corner, watching as everyone else enjoyed themselves. Unbeknownst to me, that evening marked the beginning of a journey that would completely transform my existence. And so, this is where the tale truly unfolds. A tale that took me completely by surprise. The holiday party commenced just as any other would. I arrived, hesitantly greeted a handful of acquaintances, and then seamlessly faded into the surroundings. I wasn't one to indulge in drinks often, so I opted for a soda and kept to myself on the sidelines. I observed the familiar faces, co-workers engaged in conversation, laughter, and playful banter, some swaying to the music, others mingling near the buffet, yet I maintained my distance. I didn't shy away from the idea of joining, rather, I found myself feeling a bit uneasy about it. I've consistently experienced that sensation in social environments. It's difficult to articulate, but it feels as if everyone around you is an incredible punchline that remains just out of reach. As the evening progressed, I observed Daniel, my superior, engaging in conversation with several executives. He is a commendable individual, held in high regard within the organization. He's around 50, exuding charisma, and possesses that rare ability to inspire a desire to push oneself further. I held a deep admiration for him, yet I chose to keep it hidden. He has a way of making you feel comfortable, even if you're not familiar with him. Then, there was his beloved, Natalie. At 48, she exudes beauty and has always seemed to stand a notch above the rest of us. I don't intend any negativity, but she possessed a distinct grace in her demeanor. She and Daniel appeared to have it all sorted, thriving careers, an exquisite home, and an idyllic existence. And then there was me, the individual who always felt out of place. All night long, folks were sharing light-hearted jests at my expense, nothing harsh, just playful ribbing since I wasn't as lively as the rest of the crowd. Ah, there's Kyle, the reserved individual, as some might describe him. It didn't trouble me. I had never been comfortable in the spotlight, and I certainly wasn't going to embrace it now. However, an unforeseen event occurred. As the night progressed and the dance floor filled with more revelers, Natalie approached me. She laughed, her eyes glimmering, a drink held gracefully in her hand. "Come on, Kyle," she urged, taking hold of my hand. "Shall we dance?" Let me be clear, there was absolutely no chance I was going to step out there and embarrass myself. I felt completely out of my depth. Before I had a chance to voice my objections, she softly pulled me, guiding me toward the dance floor. My heart raced, and I could feel the color draining from my face. I was completely at a loss, yet I was determined not to upset her, so I merely moved forward awkwardly. I attempted to imitate the actions of those around me, fully aware that I probably appeared quite foolish. I can't say how long it went on, maybe just a few minutes, but during that brief moment, I was acutely aware of my own awkwardness. She was in the lead, naturally, but I was so preoccupied with avoiding a stumble that I failed to realize just how near we were to each other. As the final notes of the song faded away, Natalie turned to me with a smile. "See, that wasn't so bad," she said, and I felt a wave of relief wash over me as it came to an end. I believed that was the conclusion, but it turned out Natalie still had more in store for me. Several hours later, as the festivities began to taper off and the majority of the attendees had indulged a bit too freely, I felt it was time to make my exit. As I stood by the exit, anticipating my ride, I suddenly sensed a hand resting on my shoulder. I turned around, and there she stood, Natalie. She appeared transformed, exuding a sense of ease. She wore a smile, yet it held an intriguing quality that set it apart. "Hey, Kyle," she said, moving in closer to me. "I'd like to have a brief conversation with you." I was genuinely surprised, to be honest. The last time we had a conversation was amidst that uncomfortable dance, and I assumed she had completely forgotten about it, yet she hadn't. She gazed at me for a brief moment, as if weighing her options, and then, unexpectedly, she pressed her lips against mine. It was fleeting, yet it seemed as though time stood still. I was at a loss for what to do. I stood there, completely taken aback. Natalie withdrew slightly, her smile transforming into something that felt genuine and serious. I was at a loss for how to respond. Uncertainty clouded my mind, leaving me to ponder whether I was lost in a dream or if this moment was indeed reality. I took a step back, my mind racing to comprehend the events that had just unfolded. My heart raced within my chest, and my hands trembled uncontrollably. Before I could utter a word, I spun around and rushed out to the parking lot, convincing myself that I would confront it later. I spent the entire night wide awake. With each flutter of my eyelids, that kiss consumed my thoughts. What was its significance? What motivated her actions? What on earth am I meant to do now? Countless questions swirled in my mind, yet answers remained elusive. That evening, I was completely unaware of the impending transformation that awaited my life. The days that followed the party seemed to envelop me in a thick haze. The events replayed in my mind, an unending loop of thoughts I couldn't shake off. It consumed my thoughts entirely, and there was no one I felt I could confide in about it. Whom could I possibly confide in? My colleagues? That would be catastrophic. No one would take me seriously, and if they did, the news would spread through the office in no time. I decided to keep it to myself. I didn't even confide in my mom, who was typically my go-to for advice. It seemed overly intricate. I was at a loss on how to handle it. The kiss lingered in my thoughts, a constant loop that I couldn't escape. It came as a complete surprise, utterly unforeseen. Why would Natalie, Daniel's wife, kiss me? Was I overanalyzing it? Was she merely intoxicated, and did it hold no significance? I made an effort to return to my usual routine. The day unfolded at work just like any other. The familiar office, the usual faces. Yet, each time I encountered Natalie in the hallway or received an email from her, my thoughts would spiral into a whirlwind. She had always been warm and approachable, yet now there was an unusual tension beneath the surface. I found myself pondering whether she was reflecting on that kiss as well, or if it had merely been a fleeting moment for her. The following Monday marked a significant shift in events. Just as I was getting comfortable at my desk, Natalie showed up at my office door. She tapped gently before entering. "Hey Kyle," she said, her tone steady, yet laced with an elusive undertone that intrigued me. "How have you been?" I stood still. My mouth felt parched. Days had passed, yet that kiss lingered vividly in my thoughts. I managed to force out a reply, attempting to keep it light. "I'm doing well, thank you." She smiled, yet her eyes appeared to be probing, as if anticipating something from me. "I'm pleased to hear that," she remarked, lingering in the doorway. "I need to discuss something with you. It's somewhat significant." At this point, anxiety was beginning to creep in. My heart raced, and I felt a wave of tension as I fought to maintain my composure. "What topic do you wish to discuss?" Though I couldn't envision what it might be, an instinct deep within me whispered that it was likely something unfavorable. "All right," I replied, making an effort to maintain a calm tone. "Hello there." She shut the door softly and approached my desk, perching on the edge as she settled in. The instant she made that move, I sensed the gravity of her presence. She had more on her mind than casual conversation. There was an air of mystery surrounding the situation, and I found myself completely in the dark about it. "I've been reflecting on the party," she said, her voice dropping to a whisper, "and I feel it's time to set things straight." "What transpired between us?" "I hope it doesn't become awkward, especially with Daniel involved." My heart raced with sudden intensity. She was recognizing it. The embrace of lips. That was precisely what I had been fearing. I was at a loss for words. I never expected it to feel strange. I stumbled over my words, the sensation of faintness creeping in with each passing moment. "Honestly, it was just, I'm not quite sure what transpired." She nodded, her expression becoming gentler. "I understand. It came out of nowhere, and perhaps it wasn't the best moment, but I need you to grasp something important." She halted, locking her gaze with mine. I didn't intend to cause any discomfort, but there was a purpose behind my words. I found it difficult to catch my breath at this moment. I was completely in the dark about the direction this was taking. Was she implying that she had feelings for me? What was I meant to do with that? I'd been feeling a lot of things lately," she continued, her voice barely above a whisper, "and I want to explain, but not here, not in the office. Would you consider meeting me outside of work? I believe it's important for us to have a conversation, just the two of us." I was utterly astonished. Thoughts were swirling in my head. What could she possibly wish to discuss? What about the kiss? What about her marriage to Daniel? Or could it have been something completely different? "Of course," I replied, feeling uncertain about my decision to say yes. "When would you like to get together?" Her lips curved into a smile, relief washing over her features. "I'm pleased to see your willingness. Shall we gather at the park after work today, approximately at 5 o'clock? Let's just have a conversation, all right?" "All right," I replied, my voice hardly rising above a whisper. She rose and made her way to the door. Before departing, she glanced back and offered me a brief, comforting smile. "There's no need to stress, Kyle, it's simpler than it seems. We will find a solution." She departed from my office, and I remained seated, gazing at the vacant spot she had occupied. It was hard to fathom the events that had just unfolded. What was her point? What was she seeking from me? The remainder of the day seemed to dissolve into a haze. My mind was a whirlwind, unable to settle on a single thought. I found myself glancing at the clock repeatedly, eagerly anticipating the arrival of 5 p.m. Little did I know what was on the horizon, yet I sensed that the moment I encountered her at the park, everything would change forever. The minutes dragged on interminably as I nervously anticipated the arrival of 5 p.m. Time seemed to crawl, with every minute lingering endlessly. The conversation Natalie and I had earlier kept replaying in my mind. What was she planning to express at the park? Would it turn out to be uncomfortable? Would it alter the dynamics of our relationship entirely? I attempted to concentrate on my tasks, yet it proved to be unfeasible. My thoughts wandered back to her words, echoing in my mind repeatedly. I was puzzled by her desire to meet with me. What was the pressing matter? She had left it unspoken, yet now I understood that it was more than mere small talk. As the clock approached 5, my anxiety reached its peak. I slipped on my jacket and stepped out of the office, making my way to the park. The atmosphere was invigorating, the night breeze refreshing against my skin, yet I barely paid attention. I found myself lost in contemplation of what lay ahead. Upon arriving at the park, I noticed Natalie perched on a bench beside the fountain. She cast her gaze downward, and upon noticing me, a smile broke across her face, warm yet enigmatic. As I drew near, she rose to her feet, and an unusual tension enveloped the space between us. "Hey," she murmured gently, "I appreciate you taking the time to meet with me." "Absolutely, without a doubt," I responded, even though my words felt muddled and unclear. "What is this regarding?" Natalie surveyed her surroundings, ensuring she was alone before she began to speak. She appeared to collect her thoughts, then at last met my gaze directly. "Next week, I'm heading to France for a business retreat," she started. "Please join me on this journey." My heart raced with excitement. "Excuse me? France?" I exclaimed, utterly taken aback. "Excuse me?" She nodded, her expression earnest yet oddly assured. "Indeed, France. And I'm not requesting. I assure you. Please accompany me." I released a nervous chuckle, attempting to lighten the mood of the moment. "That's absolutely wild. Daniel would never allow me to accompany you. To be frank, there's a considerable amount of work on my plate at the moment. I can't simply abandon everything." Yet, Natalie appeared unfazed by my reply. "Believe me," she insisted. "I will ensure that Daniel is on board. He will be left with no option in this situation. All you have to do is accompany me." Thoughts surged through my mind like a whirlwind. What makes me the right choice? "I'm curious, what makes you think I should accompany you?" I inquired, truly perplexed. Natalie moved a fraction nearer, her eyes warming, and her voice took on a softer tone. "Kyle, you truly are a decent person. I've noticed how you've been restraining yourself. Your uncertainty about everything is quite evident. You possess great potential, yet you let it slip away. That doesn't sit well with me. I aim to assist you in realizing your true potential. I aspire to transform you into the person I believe you have the potential to become." I paused, overwhelmed by a swirl of astonishment and incredulity. "I'm not sure I can just accompany you to France, Natalie. This seems excessively intricate." She smiled, her gaze piercing through to mine with a captivating intensity. "Your options are limited. I'm heading out, and I'd love for you to join me. This will benefit you, Kyle. I will reveal to you the unseen aspects that lie beyond this place. Elements that will help you recognize your true value. This is more than a mere business trip. This is a chance." I remained in place, attempting to comprehend everything unfolding before me. Is it France? A trip for work with Natalie? And the way she spoke, as though my opinion didn't even count? It seemed overwhelming, yet there was an undeniable urge within me that this was a path I needed to follow. "I'm uncertain," I murmured softly, almost as if to no one but myself. "I'm at a loss." Her expression became tender, and she extended her hand, resting it softly on my arm. "Kyle, you really need to have faith in me on this one. Your arrival will transform everything for you. You'll find it worthwhile." The discussion had reached its conclusion. A sensation washed over me. I found myself drawn into a vast expanse beyond my understanding. And in spite of all the doubts and uncertainties swirling in my mind, despite the persistent voice urging me to turn back, I found myself nodding in agreement. All right, I replied, my voice barely above a whisper, I'll go. I will accompany you to France. Her eyes sparkled with relief, and she offered me a brief, appreciative smile. Thanks, Kyle. I assure you, this will be a decision you won't look back on with regret. As we lingered in the waning glow, a subtle change stirred in the atmosphere. It had evolved beyond merely a business trip or a casual proposal. This marked the onset of an experience that eluded my complete comprehension, yet I sensed it would transform everything. As I strolled away from the park that evening, an unsettling sensation lingered within me, a realization that I had just embarked on a journey from which there would be no return. Reflecting on that experience, I can assert that the 2-week business trip to France stands out as one of the most remarkable events in my life. It marked a pivotal moment in my existence, the instant when all my previous self-perceptions were completely transformed. Never did I envision that a spontaneous decision would set me on a journey that would transform my life in ways I could never have anticipated. However, that is precisely what occurred. Initially, nothing seemed quite right. Natalie and I hardly discussed the specifics of what the trip would involve before we set off. I thought it would revolve around meetings, networking, corporate affairs, the typical routine. However, the moment we touched down in Paris, it became clear that this was not the reality. She had alternative intentions. Her presence extended beyond mere work. She was present to savor every moment of existence. To embrace it completely. And I found myself swept away in that tempest alongside her. Initially, I made an effort to hold back. Everything felt completely unfamiliar. Celebrations that stretch into the early morning. Lavish feasts. Infinite beverages. Evenings immersed in the finest nightlife. Interacting with individuals I could never imagine encountering in my everyday existence. The memory of that first night in Paris lingers vividly in my mind. We found ourselves at an elegant rooftop bar. The Eiffel Tower radiates its luminous charm from afar. It seemed straight out of a cinematic masterpiece. Natalie leaned in, her fragrance enveloping me, and softly urged, relax. Our purpose is to enjoy ourselves, Kyle. Embrace life fully. I found myself at a loss for words. Letting go proved to be a challenging endeavor for me. To venture beyond my familiar boundaries. Yet, there she was, guiding me forward, revealing a perspective on life I had never encountered before. Initially, I felt a wave of anxiety. I felt out of place among all these dazzling individuals. I found myself at a loss in a realm where wealth and relationships dictated the rules of engagement. Yet Natalie excelled in every aspect. She had attended gatherings like these before. Intertwined with prominent individuals. As the days unfolded, I found myself embracing her guidance. Before I knew it, I was releasing my grip. Allowing the melodies and the ambience to envelop me. We would linger until the first light of dawn broke the horizon. Chortling. Indulging in beverages. Moving gracefully to the rhythm. Initially, I found myself grappling with a sense of disconnection. Yet, it became clear to me that in her presence, I transformed into someone else entirely. I had transformed from the hesitant, uncertain Kyle I once was. She ignited a spark within me, casting aside all my uncertainties and fears. We were like two spirits ablaze, igniting every instant without a thought for what lay ahead. Amidst the chaos, the wild nights, and the luxury, there existed an undeniable connection between us. It was impossible to overlook. Natalie, through it all, remained the same woman who had pulled me from my cocoon. She had transcended the role of a mere colleague. She had transformed into something greater. Something beyond words. One night, I recall, we found ourselves back at the hotel, sharing an intimate moment in her suite. The Parisian lights danced outside the window, while the hum of distant traffic enveloped the room. I gazed at her, and for the first time I perceived not only the self-assured, commanding figure I had always recognized, but also a person who had revealed herself to me in ways I had never anticipated. I told you, she murmured, her gaze locked onto mine. This is what you required. To exist, Kyle. To genuinely experience life. The trip was unforgettable for reasons beyond just the romance and late-night escapades. She had a remarkable ability to draw me out of my shell. Opened my eyes to new perspectives. Her method of challenging me encouraged me to embrace boldness. Embrace uncertainty. The connection we shared transcended mere physical attraction, even if that aspect was undeniable. It revolved around the bond we had forged. The silent connection that deepened with every moment that went by. We maintained strict confidentiality. The late-night conversations remained a secret to all. The moments taken away. The serene mornings following gatherings when we would sip coffee and discuss the intricacies of life. It was a hidden truth. A secret that remains hidden from all. That truly heightened the excitement. The final evening is etched in my memory forever. As we sat by the Seine, the city lights danced upon the water's surface, creating a mesmerizing reflection. The hour was late, and a profound stillness enveloped everything, as though time had paused exclusively for our moment. Her hand rested in mine, fingers weaving together, as we shared a moment of quietude. We both understood that this marked the conclusion of something significant, the closing of this chapter. "You know," she said softly, "I'm really glad you decided to come with me, Kyle. You've changed since the first time we crossed paths in this journey." I smiled, yet there was a hint of melancholy in that smile. I believe I will never return to who I once was. Indeed, it was true. The journey transformed me. It felt as though my existence had been confined to shades of gray, and then, out of nowhere, the world burst into vibrant hues. I can perceive things from a new perspective now. My journey. The path that lies ahead of me. The possibilities within me. Amidst all the wild moments, the partying, and the adventures, I couldn't overlook the fact that the most significant aspect was the transformation I experienced. The fortnight spent in France was truly the highlight of my existence. A hidden truth. A vision of possibility. A memory that will forever linger in my mind. I returned to my everyday existence, yet I found myself transformed in ways I hadn't anticipated. More powerful. Increased self-assurance. No matter how much time goes by, I will always reflect on those 2 weeks as the most extraordinary, transformative experience I could ever have imagined. Ultimately, it was more than just the love, the exhilarating evenings, or the journeys to luxurious destinations that rendered it extraordinary. It was my journey into the unknown. My journey to understanding life. And perhaps, just perhaps, that was the most remarkable gift Natalie ever bestowed upon me. It's challenging to articulate the profound impact that a single moment can have on everything. An experience that propels you beyond familiar boundaries and into uncharted territories you never imagined venturing into. That moment arrived for me in the most surprising manner. One moment, I'm nestled in my serene workspace, engulfed by spreadsheets and orchestrating my life around a familiar rhythm. In an instant, Natalie strides in and turns everything on its head. She remained silent, providing no opportunity for me to reflect on it. She yanked me from the cozy existence I had meticulously crafted over the years and plunged me into the chaos of the unknown. What began as a fleeting fantasy soon transformed into an experience I wished to embrace forever. I recall that sensation, the first pushback, the uncertainty. My thoughts relentlessly urged me to remain in my comfort zone, to cling to what felt secure. I never really found myself drawn to parties. I found it challenging to navigate interactions with individuals who possess immense wealth and influence, exuding such self-assuredness. Yet, at that moment, I found myself without a choice. Natalie left me with no options. Reflecting on that moment, I understand it was the most fortunate turn of events in my life. What's the phrase? Life truly starts when you step beyond the boundaries of what feels familiar. I never truly grasped the meaning of that phrase until I experienced it myself. It was only when I found myself on that rooftop bar in Paris, enveloped by unfamiliar faces and with Natalie beside me, that I glimpsed a reality I had previously only encountered in films. Initially, I was filled with fear, completely unsure of how to respond or what to express. Yet, as time passed, I discovered that I was adjusting. I discovered a desire to welcome the tumult, the uncertainty. I began to experience a sense of vitality that had eluded me for years. Reflecting on it now, I realized that my entire outlook on life transformed. It was a revelation to discover the liberation that comes from shedding the weight of relentless deadlines and endless tasks. To fully embrace the present, savoring life as it unfolds, rather than clinging to my preconceived notions. I began to release my fears and welcome the uncertainty. And with that emerged a feeling of liberation I hadn't realized I was lacking. Natalie revealed to me an aspect of existence I had never even imagined. She didn't merely escort me to France. She revealed to me a fresh perspective on life. A journey brimming with spontaneity, adventure, and unforgettable experiences. I had always been the type of individual who shied away from risks, who remained within the limits I had established for myself. Yet, as she pulled me away from my daily habits and familiar surroundings, it was as if I was experiencing the sensation of taking a deep breath for the very first time. I discovered the importance of embracing opportunities, of agreeing when my instinct was to decline. I had shed the cautious, reserved persona I once embodied. I had transformed into a new version of myself, eager to embrace life in all its richness. And I find myself pondering, did I truly earn this? Was I genuinely prepared for such a significant transformation? Have I truly deserved this kind of change? I had devoted countless hours to concealing myself within my tasks, within my daily patterns, believing that as long as I remained focused on my path, everything would be fine. Yet, existence doesn't unfold in that manner. It doesn't pause for your readiness. At times, it pulls you in, compelling you to adjust, and transforms you in ways you never imagined. I'm curious to hear your thoughts on this. Do you believe I am worthy of this kind of awakening? Was it finally my moment to emerge from the protective barrier I had constructed around my being? Or was it merely a stroke of fortune? Was it right for someone like Natalie to push me out of my comfort zone? Perhaps it was destiny. Perhaps it was a desire that had lingered within me, unrecognized until now. To be truthful, there were moments when I believed I ought to have remained in my serene little realm. I reflected on my past life, the certainty, the ease of being aware of every forthcoming moment. Yet now? At this moment, the true treasure lay in the realm of the unknown. The adventure that unfolded when I released all my preconceived notions and ventured alongside Natalie into an uncharted realm. A journey that was untidy, tumultuous, and at times, undeniably daunting. Yet it was equally thrilling, brimming with potential, and more vibrant than anything I had ever encountered before. What are your thoughts on this? Would you have taken the same action? Did you ever consider stepping out of your comfort zone like I did? I would be eager to hear your thoughts. Do you think a person like me is worthy of experiencing that life doesn't always adhere to a predetermined narrative? Or do you believe it was just a stroke of luck? Perhaps, it was finally the moment for me to perceive life from a new perspective. Truly, I wouldn't exchange that experience for anything in the world.